Hey guys, so we're going to learn how to do 3D letters for your postcards. So this is going to be the goal of what we're going to make together, and we're going to start with where we ended on our previous demo. So this is what it looked like when we were doing our space postcard together. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to turn off the effect of the outer glow on all of the letters. So I can just turn that eyeball off on that effect so that it goes away. And then I want to select all of my letters. So I'm going to click on the letter E here for that layer. And then I'm going to hold Control on my keyboard. And I'm going to click on all of the other letters. So I've got the C highlighted now, A, P, and S. All right, so I've got all of my letters highlighted. And then I want to free transform them, but I want to skew them so that they're kind of like at an angle. So I'm going to come over here to Edit, Transform, and Skew. And then it should allow us to edit all of the layers that we have selected. So because I selected all of those layers first, I should be able to skew these letters so that they look like they're going diagonally across the space. Something like that's probably good. And then we would press enter when we're finished. So now I have some problems. My pictures here don't cover the entire space of my letter anymore. So I've got like those red parts of my letter showing, and I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select each picture and move it so that it covers up the space that I need it to. And for some of them, you might need to transform them so that we can fix that issue. But some of them might be okay. Like this one has like this little red square right there that's wrong. So I'm just going to do Control T, make it a little bit bigger. Yeah, something like that. So now all of my pictures are back in the correct places. I don't see any red areas inside of my letters. And then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to make a copy of each letter and merge them together. So I'm going to come over here and just click on the E and then do Control J. Click on the C, Control J, A. Remember, Control J is just making a copy. I'm going to make a copy of each of my letters. And then I want to put all of those letters where they're like right on top of each other. So I'm going to move my layers. So I'm going to take my P here. And what's going to be really important about moving these letters is that you have to move the one that's not currently clipped to the image, right? So this P that's on top has the image clipped to it. So if I turn this one off, then so does the picture also turns off, right? So I need to leave that one alone, and I'm going to move the one that's underneath. So I'm going to move that guy so that it's right on top of the space there, right? So I've got SP and then the S that's clipped with the picture. And I need to do the same thing with all of my other letters. So now in my layers panel, you should see SPACE as separate layers, right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to hold Shift and select all of them. And then we're going to merge those layers together. So we're going to do Control E as in echo. And then that makes it where all of those letters are now in the same layer together. So if I turned off these other layers with the letters that have the clipping masks on them, and then I move this guy, you can see it's all one layer together, right? So now that I have that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that layer with all of the letters together to create that 3D effect that I showed you at the beginning. Okay, so the first step to make it look 3D is to select the layer that has all of the letters together. And then we're gonna give it a couple of effects. Okay, so the first effect that we're going to use is Embevel and Emboss. So we're gonna click on the effects right here and then look for Bevel and Emboss. And we're gonna leave that as like the default settings. And if it's not currently at default settings, you can look for this little button here that says reset to default, right? And then I'm also gonna give it a color overlay. So I'm gonna click on this one here to give it a color overlay. When you add more than one effect, you don't have to like press OK in between each effect. You can just click on the list over here of which one that you want, right? So I'm going to click on color overlay, and then I'm going to choose the color that I want my 3D effect to be. Looking at my space background, I want it to be like a purpley blue color because I think that would look nice with the background of the space. So I'm going to choose a color here. Something like that. And then we're going to press OK. So now our layer with all of the letters in it and the bevel, emboss, and color overlay are selected. Now we're going to start doing something to make it look like it's 3D, like it's extruded. Okay, so this is going to be a lot of buttons on your keyboard, but I promise it's easy. So with that layer selected, what you're going to do on your keyboard is press Control Alt T. It's going to allow you to record a transform. So when we normally do free transform, it just does it once, right? But what we're doing right now is we're recording the action so that we can repeat it, okay? So after we do Control Alt T, then we're going to use the arrows on our keyboard to nudge this 1 pixel. So when you use your arrows, it's automatically going to nudge it only 1 pixel. So we're going to press the left arrow and then the up arrow. So I'm just going to press the left arrow once and the up arrow once. And then what that did is it moved it over and up 1 pixel, right? Then I'm going to press enter. And then I'm going to repeat that action a bunch more times, right? So in order to repeat that action, I'm going to do Control Alt Shift T. So again, I know that's a lot of buttons on your keyboard, but you're going to do Control Alt Shift T as in transform. And then you're just going to keep pressing that over and over again. And you're going to see that I'm making copies over here in my layers. So it made about 15 copies. I'm going to do like 20 just to see what that looks like. Okay, so you can see over here in my layers, it says copy 20. So I know I repeated that action 20 times. And so now you can see that I've got these like kind of 3D-ish letters that are starting to show up behind all of the clipped mask letters. And before I'm able to like fix that up so that it looks super fancy, I need to combine all of the layers that I just made, right? Because right now there's 20 layers in your layers panel that are kind of taking up a lot of space. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on layer number 20. We're going to scroll down to the bottom and hold shift and click on the first layer. And then we're going to do Control E as in echo again to combine all of those layers. So now all of those layers are in one combined layer now. And now I can start moving the top letters so that they match. So I'm going to select this S copy, and I'm going to hold Control and select the picture. So right now I have both the picture and the letter selected for the letter S. And then I'm just going to scoot that guy over. Right? So now he looks like he's in the right spot, right on top of the letter S that has the 3D part coming out. And I'm going to do the same thing for the rest of my letters. So I'm going to select the letter, hold Control, select the picture, and then move it over. And then if it doesn't line up exactly where you need it to, you can use your arrows to kind of scoot it in the right direction. Okay, so now all of my letters are in the correct place, but because I made it 3D, my S looks like it's kind of going off of the edge now. So now what I have to do is select everything. So I'm just clicking on the topmost layer and then holding Shift and clicking on the bottom layer. And I'm gonna scoot this over, and I probably also need to make it smaller. So if I do Control T, can make this whole thing a little bit smaller so that it fits better. Okay, and at this point, you might think, Miss C, surely we're done. No, we're not done. We've got a couple more things we need to do. So we're going to add an effect to the layers that have clipping masks that's going to be a drop shadow. So that's going to help with like our 3D aspect here. So I'm going to click on, start with the letter S over here. I'm going to do FX, drop shadow. And what works the best for me for this effect is the following numbers, right? So we're gonna make the opacity about 60%. We're gonna make the angle about 135. The distance is gonna be 40. The spread's gonna be 0, and the size is gonna be 100. And then when you press OK, now you're gonna notice that there's a shadow on the bottom of this S that looks a lot more convincing compared to this guy over here, right? So let's go ahead and do the same thing for the rest of our letters. So I'm gonna press on the letter P. I'm gonna go to FX, drop shadow. And if it doesn't save what you had before, you just type it back in again, right? So 60% for the opacity, 135 is the angle, 40 for the distance, and 100 for the size. So I'm just going to do that to the rest of my letters. Okay, so now all of my letters have a drop shadow, and the very last thing that I'm going to do is to change the color of the stroke, right? Because this stroke is white because that's what we were doing with our demo, but our 3D letters are now purple. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to double click on the stroke that's in the layer. So in my layers panel here, it says E, and then under effects, it has stroke. And if I just double click on that, then I can change the color of the stroke to be something that matches a little bit better. Maybe we can make it a little bit lighter. Let's try that again. Yeah, okay. And then what I want to do when I have that color is I want to save that hex code. So this hashtag down here that has a bunch of letters and numbers after it, I'm just going to do Control C to copy it. And then I'm going to double click on the stroke on all of my other letters. And I'm going to do Control V to paste that color so that I get the same exact color on all of my letters, right? So I'm just going to do that for a second. All right, and then there you have it. So now we have some 3D letters that you can potentially incorporate in your postcard. Good luck.